Okay, good afternoon. I'm a Director of Studies, and I've hit 10 years this year. So my bit is going to be sort of my experiences of being a DOS only in London, in fact. So my context is very UK-centric, I'm afraid. But that's what I'm going to talk about. I think, first of all, as a DOS, obviously, I'm a recruiter. So recruitment is one of the important things that I have to do. And it's about having a fair and equal process. We can talk about this more perhaps in the discussion. There are ways of doing this. I mean, starting with an equal opportunities policy as a school, having that is a great way to start. And I wonder how many schools have that. A mission statement as well. You know, schools are businesses. Businesses have mission statements. EFL talks a lot about inclusiveness. And that is a word which would be a very good thing to have in your mission statement, because it doesn't only mean the learners in your language classroom, it also means your staffing, I think. Do you have an HR department? If you do, I think you're lucky, because that's not common, I don't believe, but if you do have one, they can help you, obviously, with equal opportunities, very much so. But if you don't have one, then it probably comes to you as the DOS to make sort of ethical decisions and have integrity about your recruitment process. So instead of having shortlisting filters which look at teachers L1 or country of origin, instead look at the competencies that you need for your teaching team. Okay, so that might include the qualifications, of course, and the experience, but it really is about the pedagogical skills. Okay, language proficiency, yes. The behaviors, what kind of team do you have and what do you want in your team? Okay, so these become your recruitment criteria. And then the process has to be quite systematic. And we can talk about that if you want me to describe what I mean by that, but you need a system which minimizes bias, has a balance of perspectives, and you can make reasoned decisions based on the evidence that you've got from your interview process. And that's the same for all the candidates. Okay, so that's the first thing, a fair and equal process. And the next thing is this idea that students only want native teachers. Well, in my experience as a DOS, that's not true. It's absolutely not true from my experience. And Silvana did an excellent job of debunking that myth, I think, this morning with great research which highlighted all the values which students place on teachers who can deliver meaningful and fun and interesting and relevant lessons based on their needs, who have enthusiasm for teaching, who have the right experience for the courses they're delivering. So these are the things which students value. And I think if anyone has learned a second language, it's about having a great teacher. Yeah? And that could be a native teacher, could be a non-native teacher. We've probably had awful ones in both categories and great ones, hopefully, in both categories. Okay, so it's about having a great teacher. That's what students want. So we need to move away from this myth, certainly when you're recruiting, this idea that it's got to be native because that's what students want. English proficiency and accent. Okay, so it is important to say that English proficiency has to be talked about. It's probably, I think, for the recruiter, the difficult decision area. Because that's where, if you're open about your approach, at some point you do perhaps need to make a judgment call on the level of proficiency. And I think it's right to say that we shouldn't state native speaker competence required. I think that's right to sort of move away from that. We want competent users of English. Okay, I think that's fair. Trouble is that does raise questions. What does it mean? Does it depend on the context? Does it depend on your courses? What about accent? There's a slight can of worms here, which I think is a difficult area for recruiters. But we can obviously discuss it. I mean, I think from my discussions with other managers, I'm in London. We have a DOS association called Londosa. I'm the chair on that. We've had meetings on this topic, and I've asked questions and so on. And those managers who do recruit non-native speakers say that students will sometimes complain, as they can complain about any teacher, but pronunciation or accent of the non-native speaker teacher tends to be the most common complaint. And the managers who recruit non-native speaker teachers will say, I can do this because they're great teachers and they have a clear pronunciation. Okay, so it's in the minds of managers. I think it is, it's an issue we can talk about. But of course, you know, we have lots of accents from our native speaker teachers as well, perhaps some lovely Brummie accents, Glaswegian, Newcastle. So what do we mean? And of course, English is a world language, and our students need to go out and communicate effectively in this world where there's lots of varieties. So we should expose them to it. Yeah, so accents, tricky one, but I think get over it and let's have some varieties on your team to expose students to. Student expectations. So this is one of the things we do as a director of studies. Yeah, every day, every week, there's things coming to your office, and you can never really predict what students are going to complain about. But if you've got non-native speaker teachers on your team, just be ready. You know, be ready to deal with complaints. That's what I say, because they'll come along. Have your strategies, and deal with them in the same way as any other complaint. You listen to the student, elicit, well, what are they looking for? What do they want? What do they think they need to learn the language effectively? And then explain. Explain, have conviction, affirm the positives, go through all the strengths about the teacher, and educate them. It is about educating your stakeholders. And I think the best way to deal with student expectations is to be transparent. So you tell in advance, you know, this is our team, we have a diverse team, and celebrate the positives on that team, celebrate the strengths of your team, and that becomes your selling point, in fact. And then there's no problems with expectations. And finally, NEST can be best, so non-native can be best, all right? So if you're a recruiter out there and you've not recruited before a non-native speaker teacher, then my advice is get over your fears. Next round of recruitment, be open in your process and approach to it. And if the best candidate is a non-native speaker teacher, go for it. Because I think you just need the experience of doing it once. And if it's a positive experience, then after that, you'll just see all the benefits that NEST's, non-native speaker teachers, can bring to your team. Obviously, it's been mentioned already, the empathy they have, the grammar knowledge, the model they provide, inspirational model, potentially, for the learners. And on the Lamsig Day, we talked on Tuesday about team building and having a range of team roles and people with different skill sets. This is what you need on your team. You need a diversity in your team, and just one type of teacher isn't going to fill it. Yeah? So you need to bring in diversity. And I think the other thing to say here is that if you're a recruiter like me who's had positive experiences of recruiting non-native speaker teachers, share it, tell people. Yeah, so in Londosa, Verinda, who's here, did a fantastic session for us on this area. We debated it, we explored it together, we shared our success stories, we formulated a statement of support for the campaign. So you need to get it out there, because I think a lot of the people that I've spoken to and some research I've done, there are recruiters who say, I do not recruit non-native speaker teachers, but I think it's because they think everyone's like them. But hello, lots of us recruit non-native speaker teachers, and it can be a great experience. So it's about raising awareness, and that's, I think, my main point from me today.